Hey everybody, welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. We have New York Congressman Pat Ryan back with us today. We'll chat with Pat in just a moment, but first, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please rate and review and follow or subscribe, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. Before we get to our big things of the week, let's talk about the big thing of the morning. Breaking news. The Virginia Supreme Court has overturned the redistricting measure that Virginia voters passed recently. That's huge.
Huge.
Yeah, I mean, those were almost 4 guaranteed seats. And obviously the Democrats didn't start this battle, but they had to get in it.
I think it's important for Democrats to focus on not just the fact that this is huge, but it's not huge enough. People need to focus on where the country is right now, where their kitchen table is right now, how the economy is impacting them, how we are engaged in a war, which we'll talk about in a few moments, that is costing American lives, a fuckload of taxpayer dollars, and has no end in sight, that we still have Epstein pedophiles walking free. If the Democratic Party cannot successfully message, and if voters aren't fed up and exhausted enough with Donald Trump and the insanity that comes out of his White House every minute of every day, if we can't pick up, given the narrow majority that the Republicans currently have right now, if we can't pick up seats to flip the House, we don't deserve to win. I'm sorry.
You make excellent points, but it's still frustrating, the cheating, the duplicity, the hypocrisy.
Absolutely.
And if that doesn't affect how people decide to go out and vote, there's a problem there as well.
Well, I would hope, and I think we're seeing this, that people are not happy with this bullshit. I mean, look, the truth is this, the United States Supreme Court and the Republican Party are doing everything humanly possible to steal this election. They're trying. They're winning in some ways, they're losing in some ways, but they are trying not only to disenfranchise voters, Democratic voters, but voters of color. I mean, the United States Supreme Court just decimated. It filleted the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Done, over. Nothing to see here, folks. No more racism. No more protection needed. That's a given. They are moving in that direction, however, wherever, and whenever they can. That said, even under normal circumstances, in normal times, the first midterm election after a president wins, the opposition party usually blows out the incumbent party and wins at least one chamber of Congress. That's under normal circumstances, normal times. Throw in everything we know about this economy and the war and how this cabinet is destroying this country and this president is lost his mind. Seriously, we can't pick up seats? I'm going to be like Cher in Moonstruck. Anytime someone says to me, but Virginia Supreme Court, I'm going to smack them in the face and go, snap out of it. Because if that's the only way you think we can win, given Donald Trump's colossal unpopularity and where the economy is and where inflation is and where the war is, etc., I could go on all day. If we can't pick up seats with or without Virginia or any other redistricting, like I said, we don't deserve to win, period.
Yeah, well, I think the wind is behind us for this election in 2026. But this redistricting has the danger of creating an almost permanent GOP majority in these states. And we see that the next census is only going to help them more because more people are moving to red states and they will gain more seats.
Yeah, well, this race to the bottom with redistricting has got 2 parts to it. There's the midterm part, and to your point, Maddie, there's the 28 part. For 28, you have New York, you have Illinois, you have Maryland, you have other Democratic states who may not be able to hop on this train now, but they'll be there in 28 with redistricting. And the Virginia Supreme Court isn't going to be in Illinois. It is not going to be in Maryland. It is not going to be in New York. And I'm not minimizing the significance of this, but to focus on 28 is just like, let's just get through the midterms. And the way we get through the midterms is not to now spend the next however many weeks going, well, shit, we're screwed. Virginia Supreme Court, blah, blah, blah. They're getting seats and we're not, blah, blah, blah. Texas, whatever. Stop. Be angry. Be engaged. Vote. And tell everyone you know to vote. And here's another little statistic that we must focus on. In these elections, Democrats vote like 55%, maybe a little closer to 60 in a good year. People, bring that up. Bring it up to 65, 70, 75%. Given everything that's happened, if you really feel like democracy is hanging on by a thread, if you really feel like you can't afford food anymore, or housing, or health care, if you really feel like this administration is not only run by a bunch of pedophile protecting corrupt maniacs, but that the Congress controlled by Republicans are enabling and protecting them, if that's the way you feel, we have the control, people. Just vote. If we vote in numbers that matter, it won't matter what the Virginia Supreme Court just did.
Parents, your seniors in high school who are either going to college or starting their new chapter in life, make sure they register to vote. Whatever state they're going to, wherever they are, this is a group who actually is feeling more energized and they are going to vote. We need your children and grandchildren to join the fight.
Yeah, and I want to make this very clear. I don't want to downplay what happened today in the Virginia Supreme Court. I don't want to delegitimize anybody's depression over it or concern over it. It is big news. But please focus on the bigger news. The bigger news is that Donald Trump and the Republican Party are imploding. They're imploding. This election is ours to lose. Let's talk about the Iran war. So let's just recap for a second. There's nothing on the table that deals with nuclear capabilities or the enriched uranium. Regime change. We traded in an old Ayatollah for a much younger, angrier Ayatollah. His son, who lost his dad, his mother, his aunt, his sister.
The dog.
They even killed his dog. Okay, I don't know the circumstances of that, but this dude's got a bone to pick with the United States. Okay, so there's no regime change. Okay, there's an Ayatollah change. The Strait of Hormuz, or the Hormuz Strait, as Donald Trump likes to call it, which makes me feel like I'm hearing nails on a chalkboard when he does that, used to be open, and it's closed. And it's remained closed. And we have a blockade. But we're still, during a ceasefire, striking each other with missiles and drones and all kinds of shit. There's a weird ceasefire. You ever see a ceasefire where there's just active fighting? But there's a ceasefire.
Not at this scale. I mean, there might be some gunshots or something, but not at the scale of missiles and drones.
Well, you saw Donald Trump yesterday. He was talking about something, and he said it was something about the word sea, by sea, and then he goes, I'm not talking about like SEE, like vision. I'm talking about by sea, and I'm like, what the fuck?
I'm glad he straightened that out.
But maybe I'm onto something here. Maybe it's not a ceasefire, it's a ceasefire. Ceasefire. Everybody that's in that region sees fire. That's what he's talking about.
I think he already fell asleep on this one, and he's thinking about his big golden box.
Here's my impression of Donald Trump at every meeting.
Exactly.
Is that how he got his bruises on his hands? He fell? Sleeping?
No, that's from shaking hands so much. Come on, you know this already.
I think that might be from spanking Lindsey Graham.
Oh, wow.
With a backhand.
Oh, this has turned into a whole new podcast.
A backhand spank of Lindsey.
I do declare.
Oh, do it again, John. Oh, I do declare that feels so good. Oh, my God.
Where do we go from here?
We should just shut the mic right now. I don't think we can top that.
That does explain it.
Yeah. I'm not sure what humors me more. Watching Trump sleep now at every meeting, or him trying to pretend that he's not sleeping and he's been awake and is paying attention. We've all been there, right? We've all been in a meeting, especially like a post-lunch meeting. You go to lunch with a client or something, or with friends or whatever. Then you come back and you continue the meeting, and it's like, oh, shit, I am so tired. My belly is so full. I cannot keep my eyes. I got to go to the bathroom, splash cold water on my face. Like, we've all been there. Watching him in those moments where, like, there's like 8-10 people behind him standing, because the optics of this is also really entertaining. All the cabinet people standing behind him talking. They're taking turns talking, usually licking his ass. He's sitting with his back to them, and he's dozing off. His head is falling. His eyes are closed. And then he might hear the word president or Trump. Something triggers him. And then, like, his head lifts about 2 inches. His eyes are still kind of closed, but he'll like nod. It's just like, I heard every word you said. No, you didn't, because you're fucking sleeping. Anyway, he looks like a 5-year-old when he does that. Like, yeah, no, I was just resting my eyes. Remember when your kids used to say, oh, I'm just resting my eyes. Go to bed, you're tired. Just resting my eyes. He keeps issuing empty threats, like, oh, they better, or we're going to, like, fuck you. Nobody cares in Iran. They're not listening to you. How many threats has he made where he's carried out none of them? You know what they do when they hear a threat? They make a new Lego meme. That's what they do.
We get more information from the Lego movies than we get from the Pentagon.
Yeah,
It's true.
it is true. But and those memes are brilliant. But, like, he's still, this week, yesterday, he issued another one. Maybe even today. You better sign that paper the way we want, or where what? What are you going to do?
But then the oil prices go up, and he has to say, oh, we're about to make a deal.
Let's talk a little bit about Trump's vanity projects. This is a guy who is fighting a war overseas. He's fighting a war with the economy here. There are so many issues of affordability, which, by the way, this week he called Democrat bullshit. He literally said affordability is Democrat bullshit. So what is he spending his time on? All the things that make him feel good. The credit, the affirmation, the redemption, the honors that he knows he'll never get when he leaves office. So what is he doing? He's giving them to himself, like renaming and redoing the Kennedy Center, the ballroom, the reflecting pool, the arch, painting the Eisenhower Executive Office building. Who gives a fuck about these things? Do you think the working class dude in Virginia cares about this stuff? These are costing hundreds of millions of dollars.
Taxpayer dollars.
He said he wasn't going to use taxpayer dollars for the ballroom. CNN aired a great clip the other night, a montage of him making all these promises. It's going to be private money. I'm paying for it, blah, blah, blah. Rich people, blah, blah, blah. They literally put something in a bill this week for $1 billion in funding. I'm no developer, but what kind of ballroom costs $1 billion?
It's the 7-inch thick windows.
You need
I
the
didn't know
special. You need the special marble.
I didn't know where you were going with that, Maddie. All I heard was 7-inch. I was like, stop!
Well, you started it earlier in the program.
So this is why I say, like, if voters aren't pissed off that he is spending $1 billion to $2 billion or more on this bullshit, we're a nation at war. We're a nation with a struggling economy, where the middle class, the working class, can't make ends meet, can't afford housing, can't afford health care. Unemployment is on the rise. And he walks around with a fucking picture of his ballroom. Like, why is that important for him to be spending time on and our money? I think this is going to backfire. It's already backfiring. So look, I'm going to end where we started. This country is in a state of chaos right now because Donald Trump is a chaos agent. We all feel it. Every one of us feels it in the pocketbook. Okay? I went to get gas in my car yesterday. Gas, which he said yesterday, is coming way down. He literally said that.
I heard him say it.
Okay.
You didn't notice?
Okay, so folks, when you have a choice of focusing on the redistricting problem or the Virginia Supreme Court, focus instead on when your hand is on that pump and you're looking at the numbers at $4.59 a gallon now. Remember 2 months ago it was under $3. It's like $2.95. $2.95 to $4.59 because Donald Trump's little micro dick needed something to feel good about, and or he needed a distraction from his Epstein shitstorm. Remember that. Remember all of that, because that's what you're going to get upset about. That's what is going to engage you in this election, and that's what's going to drive you to the polls and make you get everyone else to vote. Like Jen said, get your kids to vote if they're turning 18. That's what matters, not redistricting. You know what redistricting is like? It's like one of those things in the road, the bumps, the
Speed bump?
Speed bump. Okay. It's like you got to slow down, boom, but then after you get over the speed bump, you can go 100 miles an hour until the next, right? Just go 100 miles an hour towards the midterms and do everything you can to put these people out of jobs. All right, let's get to our winners and losers.
My winner, hope for change in November. According to a new Washington Post ABC News poll, 59% of Americans believe President Trump does not have the mental sharpness necessary to lead the country. My loser, fair voting. Tennessee passed a new redistricting map and breaks up the state's lone Democratic district.
On Thursday, we saw a rare win for the rule of law. The Court of International Trade ruled Trump's replacement tariffs are unlawful and ordered refunds to the small businesses forced to pay them. My loser is Virginia voters. Moments ago, as we've discussed, the state Supreme Court struck down the redistricting proposal voters just approved at the ballot box.
My winner, Washington Post journalist Hannah Nathanson, the target of an FBI raid and asset seizure in January, who won a Pulitzer Prize this week for her reporting on the Trump administration's overhaul of the federal government. My loser, Donald Trump, whose approval continues to crater towards the 20s and was dealt a second major tariff defeat when a federal court ruled this week that his 10% global across-the-board tariffs are illegal. And that gets us to the weekly rant. At a hearing yesterday, a federal appeals court panel appeared likely to reject Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth's witch hunt against Democratic Senator Mark Kelly, who sued Hegseth in January over an effort to punish him over his call to U.S. service members to refuse to follow illegal orders. This stems from a video Kelly made with 5 other congressional Democrats last November. The punitive actions Hegseth is attempting against Kelly, who initially received a letter of censure, included a motion in rank and a stripping of retirement benefits, including his pension. So let's see if I've got this straight. Decorated war heroes like Senator Mark Kelly have risked life and limb to defend democracy and free speech, only to come back from war, retire, and be told they'll be punished if they exercise their own free speech rights by criticizing the government and or Hegseth. What the fuck? No, seriously, what the fuck? But this is actually no surprise, as Trump and his corrupted Department of Justice, first under former Attorney General Pam Bondi and now under acting Attorney General and former Trump attorney Todd Blanche, has for the past 16 months weaponized the government against Trump's opponents and perceived enemies, including former FBI Director James Comey, New York State Attorney General Tish James, former Special Counsel Jack Smith, former CIA Director John Brennan, journalist Don Lemon, and many others, as well as myriad law firms and universities. So why not shamelessly and unconscionably target patriots like Kelly, who bravely and honorably served his country? Because the 5 deferment draft-dodging coward Trump has massive disdain for the military, its generals, Gold Star families, and veterans. As for Kelly, he's not backing down and has vowed to fight this till the end with everything he's got, because, he said, there, quote, had to be consequences for abject war crimes. That's why the military said it won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief. There's a standard, there's an ethos, there's a belief that we are above so many things that our enemies or others would do. Oh, wait, that wasn't Senator Kelly who said that. You know who said that? Pete Hegseth, back in 2016. That's right. Hegseth is now trying to strip a decorated war hero of his rank and pension over something he himself once said. What a difference a decade makes when you have your slicked back head shoved so far up Trump's ass that you no longer know what the hell you truly believe. Just like J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, Scott Bessent, Bobby Kennedy Jr., and all the other cabinet members who've pathetically sold their souls to a democracy-raping dictator wannabe in exchange for access, relevance, power, and money. All right, let's get to Congressman Pat Ryan. He represents New York's 18th Congressional District, and he's an Ulster County native and West Point graduate. He served 2 tours of duty in Iraq, and after returning home, he started a small business before being elected Ulster County Executive in 2019. In Congress, Pat serves on the House Armed Services and Transportation and Infrastructure Committees. Congressman, welcome back into the back room.
Thanks for having me. Good to be back.
Always good to have you here. I want to start off with some breaking news, literally like in the last minute or two as we're taping here on Friday morning. The Virginia Supreme Court has overturned the recent ballot measure that would allow Democrats to redistrict Virginia. Is this over, or are there options that Democrats can and will pursue?
Well, we're certainly have been and going to continue to pursue all options. I'm just sort of seeing it literally. I got the breaking news alert right before we hopped on here, so I want to wait to see an expert takes on this. But the first read seems like is a serious decision that may hold, at least as it relates to 2026. Mm-hmm. But we got to be clear who started this race to the bottom, which was certainly Trump. And, you know, I don't think it's good for the country that we're in this fight. But that being said, with the fight started, we've got to fight back and we've got to win. So,
yeah, you know, the Republicans hold a razor-thin majority right now. Given traditionally how the opposition party flips 1 or 2 chambers of Congress during the first midterm election after a president's election, but more so, given where we are in this country with the economy, with the war, with all the problems, I think it's important for Democrats, for voters, not to focus on stuff like this. We should be able to handily win this election with or without redistricting, right?
That's absolutely right. And our district is really a microcosm of the country, where it's one of the last purple districts in the House. It's got the full gamut of, from farm country to pretty dense urban areas and everything in between, and a lot of political diversity and other diversity. And I can tell you definitively, the American people are widely and aggressively rejecting what this administration is doing. At every, if the core promise was lower cost and less war and less overseas entanglements, we've obviously seen skyrocketing costs and more war in the last, even just in this calendar year, than we've had in decades. So, and that is not being well received. So I agree, channeling energy into our electoral and democratic process, rather sort of don't agonize, organize, is definitely the mantra. And delivering a decisive victory in all across the House and Senate races is also going to be super important to undercut any narrative Trump might try to introduce of sowing doubt into the results. If it's an overwhelming result, which I think it can be, then I think that's actually the single greatest thing we can do to de-risk his strategy to mess with the elections.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about Iran. The war is over 2 months old. Trump initially said it'd be over in 4 to 6 weeks. There's no clear mission, no end in sight. What concerns you most at this point?
Well, I think you hit the main point, which is this is a war we shouldn't have started. Both not done the right way process-wise, which we shouldn't skip, but more importantly, it is a war that's now making America less safe. The American people are less safe because of this war. And the costs have been tremendous and lives lost, billions spent. The conservative estimate is that even the DoD put out was 25 billion. I think it's closer to 50 or more already, over $1 billion a day. And literally every American is paying the price at the gas pumps now. Fertilizer prices hurting our farmers, food prices going up, compounding the tariff damage. So I think the macro concern is both on safety and affordability. This has been a huge blow to where we need to be going in the opposite direction. And really the hard part is now, having gotten sucked into this really kind of what I would call in a wonky way, an escalation cycle that Trump is now trapped in. How do we get out of it? I mean, it is really tough now, having initiated this and given tremendous leverage to the Iranians. And by the way, to Russia and China, that are helping them in a bunch of ways behind the scenes, for sure. It's really difficult to get out of it. And we're seeing Trump struggle with that now. And so that it just, I think it's hard to articulate how profoundly this hurts our security and safety, both immediately, but in the long term as well. We now have less ability to compete with more serious adversaries like China and Russia and others.
You had an epic, fiery exchange with Def Pete Hegseth at his hearing last week on Capitol Hill. You shut him down with stop when he stonewalled and deflected, and you demanded his resignation. Talk about that moment.
I mean, that's a year plus of fury, both personally, but also on behalf of so many people I'm hearing from, including senior folks in the military, by the way, that recognize that he is not only a joke, but that he's incredibly dangerous in this job. And that's never happened in our country's history, to have someone who's such a clown in such an important job as Secretary of Defense. So I take that very personally. And I was questioning him about what should not be a partisan thing, which is what happened to let us get to the point where 6 soldiers were killed and over 30 wounded in a very honestly predictable and significantly preventable attack. And he just was unwilling to take any accountability, immediately goes on the attack. And I refuse to accept that. And I think it was important to channel the voices. I mostly just shared quotes from American soldiers who survived this attack, talking about how unprepared they were for the attack. And his unwillingness to really hear that, I think, was very, unfortunately, obvious to everybody watching.
He also said last week that the 60-day war powers deadline is paused because of the ceasefire. But the war powers resolution language is pretty clear about the administration's obligations, which came due last week. You've introduced a funding prohibition to stop any additional funding of the war. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's called the No Funding for Iran War Act. It's intended to be another tool to put pressure on the administration to wind down the war immediately, get us back home, get prices back down again. We've tried these war powers resolutions multiple times. We've had a few Republicans once or twice vote with us, but not enough. And so the idea here is to more directly get at the power of the purse that Congress holds, and to make sure the American people understand this isn't some theoretical thing happening. This is a trade-off, a decision you're making to send billions to this war that the American people don't support versus investing it here at home to lower housing costs, lower healthcare costs, grocery and utility costs. And so I think it's in talking to people who, maybe want to give the benefit of the doubt to the president when it comes to defense or national security, once they understand the price that they're literally paying, they understandably say, well, hold on, I'm not down with that. So I think putting a price tag is super important. And in this case, saying we're not going to spend a single dollar more on this war, we're not going to follow good money with bad here, is really important.
And what kind of ceasefire has continued fighting and missile and drone strikes?
I mean, they're just straight lying to the American people. And, to see the 4-star chairman of the Joint Chiefs 2 days ago have to stand there while Hegseth lied straight up to the American people, to the cameras, it's stunning. And I've been doing more kind of national press and media than I've in the last 2 months than I've done in years, because I think it's so important right now that all of us, but especially those of us that have served, just call out these lies. I mean, they're just straight up. This isn't nuance or trying to be clever. Like, this is just blatant lies. And we saw this, by the way, the impacts where after the ceasefire was initially broken and essentially we allowed Iran to attack the UAE, one of our key allies, and didn't respond and minimize that, the Saudis saw that and said, well, hold on, if you're not going to come to our defense, and we're not going to be part of this. So we are just unraveling alliances that we've built, not just in the Middle East, but in Asia, of course, in Europe. And the damage is hopefully irreparable, but it's going to take a lot of work to repair.
Help me understand something, if you can. Since day one, Trump has said we won. This week, he and also, I think, Marco Rubio said the war is over. So why do we need to have a ceasefire and a peace deal with a country we've already beaten, whose military, according to Trump and Hegseth, we've obliterated, yet the podcast host says sarcastically, is still launching drone and missile strikes on our military assets, as well as those of our allies like the UAE. What is going on? I mean, we literally cannot trust anything they say about this war, can we?
No, we can't. And I actually was saying to some of my staff this week, like, it's actually hard to go online, pick your platform or even TV, but it's certainly online, and actually suss out what is factually happening on the ground here. And I say that as a sitting member of Congress on the Armed Services Committee.
That's
and we're
terrifying, by the way.
Yeah, and you know, when we have the classified briefings, we are not getting satisfactory answers from this administration. So we've been relying on open source public satellite imagery. You know, the Washington Post did some really important reporting to show the level of damage done to U.S. facilities. So it just means we have to apply a lot more scrutiny. I will say, though, like, this is an extreme level, but let's not forget early days of Iraq in the Bush administration, when I was sent over there, they were lying and gaslighting the American people too. You know, some Democrats over the course of our country's history have been guilty of this as well, where, you know, when we get out of whack and the American people aren't consulted throughout this process, which is what the wisdom of our founders and framers called for, we end up with really bad strategic outcomes. And when this war started without any consultation, I mean, there's not even an attempt to make the case to the American people, not a single vote in Congress. It is not shocking to me that the public polling last weekend showed this war, even at this point, as unpopular as Vietnam and Iraq, at the bottom of support there. And that's just a sad statement of where we are.
Mm-hmm. Let's switch to the economy and the upcoming midterms. We have gas and oil at the highest levels in 4 years. Inflation is at the highest level since November 23. Trump has broken his no wars, America first promise. Epstein pedophiles still walk the land free. Putting aside the redistricting debacle, how confident are you about November?
I feel very confident there's going to be a major wave against Trump and the administration and the costs and the wars. I think that is about as baked as you can get. I think we saw the early signs of that in the 2025 elections, including in local elections in the Hudson Valley. I mean, Dutchess County, where you're sitting, flipped the county legislature. Orange County, which we did not expect, flipped their local county legislature. So that wave has been building, and it's largely against all the harm, rightly so. What I think we really need to focus on, though, both for purposes of the midterms and for 2028, and just because it's the right thing to do, is not just what we're against, but what we're for. And I am continuing within the Democratic Party to try to push us to be more explicit about the positive case. What is the story we're telling of how we will do better, what we will do better, why it will actually help folks? Because I talked to a lot of, you know, folks in our area. There's about 20,000 people, for example, who voted for President Trump and voted for me in our district in the last election. They don't really trust either party. They don't really trust politics and politicians. And it's because we're always just being negative about the other side and not positive about what we want to do. So I've been really trying to focus on, what my campaign is for, what the party is for. And candidly, like, we need to do a lot of work on the national brand level anyway for the Democratic Party to improve that. And if we're not honest about that, then we're going to be in real trouble for 2028.
And speaking of 28, are you running? Can we break some news here?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Absolutely not running, or absolutely can't break news here? Or both?
I'm running for re-election 2026. Hopefully I win, and then hopefully re-election in 2028, and see how many more hard fights we have in us here. But I think it's going to get harder in the country before it gets better, and we just need all hands on deck right now. I know I said it earlier, I can't say it enough. Like, I really think it's so easy to agonize and get concerned and have all these worries, which are founded, but we have to channel that into political organizing, civic action, exactly what you're doing and have been doing with this podcast and all the work you're doing. I mean, I do think in our area in the Hudson Valley, we've actually met the moment really powerfully. We've stopped some very concerning and harmful things, from closing VA beds at our VA to trying to close our Social Security office, cutting funding to our food bank. We've fought back on all those. We've stopped those. We're still in this battle to stop this ICE mass detention center in Orange County. I think we've largely won that battle, but I really don't trust this administration at all on that. And Tom Homan just said a few days ago they might resurge ICE forces to New York if we pass the state legislation that's being talked about. So we've got fights here to rally around that aren't partisan, by the way. Like, these are 80-20 plus issues where a lot of independents and Republicans agree, and that's where we need to be channeling our energy, and is like building those coalitions.
Mm-hmm. In our last couple of minutes, I want to ask you about a couple of measures you're behind. Tell us about Melanie's Law.
Yeah, well, this is, really hits home, especially for folks in Dutchess County, where there's this horrific loophole in New York state law about protecting domestic violence victims and their families. And because of a failure in the old New York state law, a 29-year-old woman named Melanie Chiniz was killed by her mom's abuser in 2022. Thanks to Michelle Hinchy and others, we passed really important state legislation in 2024 to close that loophole. And then this week, I introduced a bill at the national level, which we're really proud of, in Congress, to make this national law, to close this loophole and to reward states that do it and give them resources to do it. So I think it's a great example of, actually, in our community, and particularly, Melanie's mom and family, or Cheryl's her mom, channeling this loss and grief into something that'll actually save a lot of lives across the country. So please spread the word about that bill, and we're trying to get support for that bill.
Mm-hmm. And what about TRICARE, this bill that you introduced yesterday with Congressman Eugene Vindman?
Yeah, this is a really good bill too, where it's about essentially lowering prescription drug costs for military families. We got a lot of military families at West Point and in the district, at Stewart and other places, and so they're actually paying higher prices, believe it or not, on TRICARE, which is the DoD healthcare plan. They're paying higher prescription drug prices than average Americans on other plans, which is pretty stunning given how high the costs are for others. So this just brings parity and lets the DoD bring down prescription drug costs and push the pharma companies to have better rates. So it also saves taxpayer money because it'll lower the cost of insurance that we all pay for our military families and soldiers.
And lastly, what about holding health insurance companies accountable for high rates of claim denials? You're working on a bill on that, or did introduce a bill on this?
We just introduced one, my colleague Angie Craig and I, who's from Minnesota. And we've seen this, and one of the biggest topics we get into our office is, especially now with United Health through Optum buying up all these practices, is we've seen the denial rate go up significantly, where people that absolutely deserve coverage and deserve health care, and they're paying for it a lot in their premiums, are just getting rejected. So this is legislation to penalize healthcare companies that are over denying, essentially. And to hold them accountable. It's one of several measures we're focused on to really try to break up this stranglehold that United in particular, but a lot of these health insurance companies have on our healthcare, where they've vertically integrated. They bought up our doctors' practices, our local pharmacies have been put out of business, and now they're starting to deny claims and refuse other coverage if it's not United. So we really, this is a massive issue, especially in the Hudson Valley.
Congressman, thanks for coming on. Keep up the good fight.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate all that you're doing too. And if anybody wants to get involved in any of this stuff, please reach out to us.
Mm-hmm. Take care.
Thanks, Andy.
This episode was produced and edited by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-produced by Maddie Rosenberg and Jen Hammoud for Radio Free Rhinecliff, with additional editing by Maddie Rosenberg, music by Andrew Hollander, and graphic design by Cricket Lengel. And with a special thanks to our sponsor, The Epicurean. Again, thanks for listening. Please rate and review wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the Backroom with Andy Ostroy YouTube channel, where you can watch full videos of our interviews. See you next time.